20 seas, raging storms, droughts, many of them in places like sub-Saharan Africa where half my family now lives. Some of you know my wife, Cindy. Today, over 19,000 people will die prematurely from climate change, from the fine particulate matter that we spew out of our smokestacks and tailpipes because of this climate crisis. Today on planet Earth, an estimated 150 species will go permanently extinct. That's 1,000 times, as much as 10,000 times the natural rate in what scientists are calling the 6th great extinction. We're not just here tonight to learn a bit and see good friends, although that matters, and to meet some new friends. We're here to contemplate what is, I would argue, as a dad, as a co-owner of a clean energy company, as a concerned citizen like all of you, to contemplate the most existential, fundamental challenge that we face on planet Earth. And we'll either turn a sharp corner in 2020, or I don't know what kind of a future we'll be leaving to my kids. So this sure as heck matters, and I'm so glad you're all here, and I'm so glad that we have a candidate who we'll hear from tonight who is putting this issue front and center. So let me introduce our honored guest. Governor Jay Inslee of the state of Washington has been that state's governor since 2013, implementing a bold, progressive vision to tackle climate change, to strengthen working families, and to grow good-paying jobs. Under his leadership, Washington created thousands of clean energy jobs, dramatically expanded voter rights, protected LGBTQ Americans from discrimination, provided affordable health care to over 800,000 Washingtonians, passed reproductive parity for all women, became the first state to stand up to Trump's Muslim ban, and passed historic investments in public schools, teacher pay, and infrastructure. As governor, Washington state has been a beacon of progress. The state has been ranked the best place to work, the #1 economy in the nation, and one of the country's leading states for clean energy. Prior to being elected governor, Jay Inslee served 7 terms in the U.S. House, and if you haven't picked up his book, you'll hear a bit of that history going up against folks like Dick Cheney when it came to the corruption of companies like Enron, buying our politics and setting a very damaging energy policy. Check it out. He also served 2 terms in the Washington State House of Representatives. And he's also a dad, married to his wife of 47 years, 3 sons, I believe, some grandkids, an avid cyclist and hiker. Join me in welcoming Washington Governor Jay Inslee.
My name is Jay Inslee, Governor of the state of Washington. I've come here to say something very simple, and that is that I intend to make Donald Trump a blip in history. I really am appreciative of this invitation, Dan. Thanks for your leadership. I've heard a lot about it. I love your car out there. I'd like to race you with my GM Bolt.
Let's do it.
I want to thank our sponsorship of our Democratic clubs. But I want to have a particular appreciation for the new Ipswich effort. I'll tell you why. I started my political career in a 63% Republican area. It was an agricultural small town. I was a town of 3,000. My wife and I are probably the only 2 dedicated Democrats in the whole town. I think the best Democrats are places like Ipswich. Can we give a round of applause for just being so? I want to get something off my chest before I talk about sort of the larger issues. And that is this attack by Donald Trump on our Muslim representative. I just want to say it is so galling and angry to me. And I'll tell you why. This is not only an attack on our representative endangering her security, it is an attack on all Muslim Americans. Muslim Americans serving in the U.S. military, Muslim Americans who are teachers, Muslim Americans, many of whom lost their lives in the 9/11 attack. And this is an attack by an extension on all Americans. Because the fundamental genius of America is our recognition that diversity is a strength. And our ability to blend all kinds of faiths and cultures is a fundamental aspect of America. And it is now our obligation to make sure that a man who is so callously cruel in so many different ways, to make sure he is just an aberration, not a continued problem in America. And that is our obligation. I did my little part by speaking out against it today, and it's consistent with things I've believed in for some time. I'm proud of a lot of things I've done, but maybe I'm proudest as being the very first governor to stand up against Donald Trump's Muslim ban. The very first one to do it. So, I wanted to get that off my chest. Two things I want to talk about tonight that I think are unique in my candidacy. There's a lot of good talent of our Democratic field. It's a very diverse field, a lot of talent. In my opinion, somebody asked me, I'm going to be on Pod Save America tonight, and they asked me what do I think of the other candidates. I said, well, there's 15 of them, great vice presidents. I think there's a lot of talent in this regard. But there's two things that are unique about my candidacy, and I think the most important one is that I'm the only candidate who has said very, very clearly that defeating climate change has to be the #1 job of the next president. It has to be the first and foremost and paramount obligation of the next president. And the reason is because of the great urgency that has been presented us. We have kicked this can down the road for 3 or 4 decades now. And there is only one more chance to save our kids and our grandkids from a very degraded future. And that is the next presidency. And I know this is a moral certainty. If it is not job one, it will not get done. And I'm telling you this very clearly. If I am giving you this honor, I will make defeating climate change the #1 priority of the United States of America. And that is my pledge to you tonight. And I feel not only willing and able to make that pledge, because I've been working on this for about 20 years now. I co-authored a book in 2007 about this issue. I helped form the U.S. Climate Alliance with Jerry Brown and Andrew Cuomo, because when Trump purported to take us out of the Paris Agreement within 24 hours, we stood up the U.S. Climate Alliance. We now have 3 states who are committed to the Paris Agreement. We have shown to the rest of the world that there is intelligent life in the United States of America. And I'm proud of this achievement, and I think this has served me well. Now, why is this such an urgent matter? Dan talked about climate refugees. I know them personally. I was in Hamburg, Iowa, the day before yesterday. This is a town that was formed in 1858. About 1,100 souls live there now. Since 1858, it has never been flooded. But this year, floodwaters went right through the middle of town and pretty much have made it uninhabitable now. This is a town since 1858 has never experienced this. But now, because of the climate change and the more extreme precipitation events, these kind of floods are going to become more frequent over time. We know that for a scientific certainty. Last month I was in a little community called Seminole Springs. It's in the foothills north of Los Angeles. And it was a town that the Woolsey Fire went through and torched about 100 folks. They live in mobile homes in that community. It's a beautiful little community right up in the foothills, really pretty place. And it just gets you when you see that kind of devastation. There was a woman named Marcia Moss I met there. We got done with our tour, and she said, Governor, I really want to show you my home, or where my home used to be. And we walked up quite a ways to where her home was. When I got up there, she showed me what her home was. It was just a twisted bunch of melted aluminum from her mobile home. And she said, you know, I've lost everything in my life except 2 things. Number one was this driveway that did not burn in the fire. And she was very proud of it because she had actually built this driveway rock by rock. She put this nice little design in it of these rocks. And she said, I still have the driveway that I built and I'm proud of it. And she said the other thing she had was hope that we were going to do something to prevent these catastrophic fires. And she thanked me for coming because she thought that my visit suggested that there was hope that we were not going to let the planet burn up. And I'm dedicated to give the Marcias of the world hope that we can create a clean energy future and prevent this type of catastrophic loss. We are a better nation than Donald Trump when it comes to defeating climate change. And that's the urgency of this. We know that this is a matter of urgent peril, but we also know this is a moment of great promise, because we know we can build a clean energy economy and put millions of people to work. And we know this for sure. Donald Trump is wrong. Wind turbines don't cause cancer, they cause jobs. And we Democrats are going to put people to work all over America in clean energy jobs. That is our destiny. We know this because it's happening right now. Look, I predicted that we would be building wind turbines, and now we're building wind turbines like crazy in Iowa. I predicted we build batteries, and we're building batteries by the gigawatt. In Nevada, I predicted we do biofuels, and we're doing that at a biorefinery right now in Washington. And a couple weeks ago, I got an argument with Meghan McCain. I was on The View, and she was saying, "Oh, you pesky Democrats, you're going to take away our planes and our trains and our cars." And I said, "Well, that's kind of interesting, Meghan, because this morning, the governor of the state of Washington has a shiny blue General Motors Bolt, an all-electric car made by American workers in Orion, Michigan. That is a destiny that we offer Americans as Democrats to create a clean energy future that can put millions of people to work." Now, I know this message can connect with people because I've seen it work. This last year, I was chairman of the Democratic Governors Association. So it was my job to get Democratic governors elected. And I'm proud to tell you that we flipped 7 seats from red to blue. That's the biggest haul in 36 years. Something worth celebrating. We did this in part because we connected with voters in the Midwest. We won, people said after 2016 we can't win in the Midwest. What a bunch of hogwash. We flipped seats in Wisconsin, Michigan, Minnesota, Illinois, and Kansas. I know how to win to connect with people on these measures of economic growth. And we know we need to do that, and we know that we can do this around this clean energy message. So I present a vision that I think is necessary, but I also bring something too that it's unique. I'm very pleased that other candidates are now talking about climate change. I think that's a good thing. I've been talking about it for 20 years, so I'm glad they're joining us. But we know this has to be more than just, on your refrigerator, you got a to-do list. This has to be more than being on your to-do list. Because if it is not job one, it won't get done. We have to put our political capital behind it. We have to campaign on it to develop a mandate. And we have to get rid of the filibuster so Mitch McConnell cannot stop progress in the United States of America. I was the first candidate to say that. At least one other has now joined me. I think that's great, but we need to move the ball here. The other thing I bring to this is just experience getting this done. There's a difference between talking about it and getting it done. In our state, we've had a lot of success. We built a $6 billion wind turbine industry. We've got 50,000 cars shortly that are all electric. We built charging stations up and down our interstates. I started a clean energy development fund that has spun off a bunch of companies. We are moving forward in biofuels, and now I'm pleased to tell you the day before yesterday, my chamber just passed a bill that will give us 100% clean electricity, 100% no fossil fuels. That is a vision that I believe is appropriate for the United States. So I've got a record on this that is long and productive, and I look forward to being potentially in the White House to help the country move forward. That's the first thing that I have kind of unique. The second thing I have unique is I've been a successful governor that's got things done. And we have demonstrated something that's very important. We know the central contest between we Democrats and the Republicans. The Republicans believe in a trickle-down theory that if you take care of the top 0.5%, they'll take care of you. We believe fundamentally that if we build a middle-out economic strategy, that's what will build the economy. That if we have more consumers in the middle class who can actually buy shoes once in a while, or milk for your kids, that's how you build economic growth. Washington State is a test bed of whose theory is right. Because what I've done in the last 6 years is to demonstrate the efficacy of our democratic principles. Let me give you an example of this. I'm proud to say that we've produced the single most robust family medical leave in the United States. I'm proud to say that we have now produced the highest minimum wage in the United States, tied with one other state. I'm proud to say that as governor, I passed the first net neutrality bill in the United States, so that corporations will not abuse our rights on the internet. We're very radical in Washington State. We believe that women should make the same as men. So we've passed a gender pay equity law that's probably the best in the United States. We believe people should be able to vote, and I'm proud to say we've passed the best voting rights laws in the United States so that everybody can vote. We know that we need reform in our criminal justice system. There's been way too much racial disparities, in part because of the drug war. And I'm proud to say we legalized marijuana, and I just offered a pardon for 3,500 people so that we can stop some of the racial disparities. I'll just mention one other thing. I come from a public education background. My dad was a biology teacher. My brother and brother-in-law are retired art teachers, and my kids have been in public school. We have had the largest expansion of educational opportunity that I'm aware of in my state, with huge increases in early child education. We know getting those kids at age 3 and 4 is the single best investment, and we've got 8,000 more kids that have that opportunity. We've made the biggest increase in reduction of tuition and new financial aid packages. And I'll just mention this as the cherry on the top of everything I've ever done. I'm proud that this year I fought for and I got a 12% pay increase for all the educators in the state of Washington. So now, if you listen to the Republicans, what they will tell you that if you do those things that I just told about, it'll ruin your economy. It'll just destroy everything. Nobody will be willing to go to work. Nobody will invest in your state. Well, how about this? According to CNBC, we are now the best place to do business in the United States. Oxfam says we're the best place to work in the United States. We have the greatest wage growth and the best GDP growth in the United States. My state of Washington, under my leadership, has proved this. If you want a great economy, hire a Democrat. And that's a principle that we have demonstrated. And if we want a template of economic growth, look west to the state of Washington. Not only for justice, not only for diversity, not only for an increase of opportunity, but economic growth. So these are two things that I'm offering to our great party in the next great contest. And I want to thank you for your interest in righting what we have suffered. I know we are extremely angry. I know that we are extremely concerned. But I'm an optimist, and I believe I'm a perfect candidate to beat this guy. And I'll tell you why. I'm a perfect contrast. He's a pessimist. I'm a big-time optimist. I know we can build a clean energy economy. He is a fearful, insecure person. You may have noticed I'm fairly confident. I'm worried about a lot of things. He is a person who believes in a smaller, contracted, kind of walled-in America. I believe in an expansionist governor of America. He believes diversity is a vice. I believe diversity is a virtue. And I've made a history of beating Republicans. I beat one in a Republican district in '88, beat one in '90, beat one in '92. I got thrown out of Congress in 1994 because you know what I did? I voted for the assault weapon bill. I was the 217th vote. And I lost my seat. But you know what? That was a right vote then, it's a right vote now, and I got the NRA on the run right now in Washington State. So I'm ready for this effort, and I'm looking forward to your gentle criticisms, softball questions, and genius. By the way, I got to tell you, this is the coolest building I have ever been in the political event. It is just, it's so beautiful. I had a really old barn, not this old, in Yakima, Washington. I used to grow 4 acres of hay and 3 kids out in the orchards of Yakima Valley. But I couldn't afford red paint. It was white. I only had white paint, so I'm a little bit jealous. Okay, take it away, man.
Thank you, sir. Well, you are in New Hampshire, so you know we do real questions. We ask them straight. There's some wonderful organizers at tonight's events, and they've actually prepared a few questions, so we're going to start right with them, but do hold your questions. We're going to move right through them. We're going to get some direct responses, only the truth, of course, and invite as many people into the conversation as possible. So the first question comes from the organization Merrimack Water Warriors, Rep. Wendy Thomas.
Thank you. Thank you, Governor, for being here, and thank you for taking my question. I'm here today with Representative Nancy Murphy and Representative Kathy Stack. We're all from Merrimack, which used to be a very red town, and now the last election we voted 4 of our 8 reps to be Democrats.
All right.
And one of the reasons that we got in is because we have a PFAS, an industrial polluter in our town with PFAS. So that leads me to my question. Given both the state of an EPA that has been gutted by the current administration and environmental regulations that are not sufficiently protective of human health, what would you do to change this, and how would you hold polluters accountable?
Well, the first thing I would do is not allow oil and gas interests to control the government of the United States. And I'm serious about that. And that's very important. Look, we know what this guy has done. He's put the fox in charge of the chicken house, big time. They're rolling back almost every single thing they get their hands on. The latest outrage, I'm sure you're aware of this, is this effort to change the Section 401 of the Clean Water Act, which is a big deal in my state, and it has to do with a very bedrock principle of states being able to protect clean water. So we have to, the first order of business, probably before I get lunch on the first day, if I'm given this honor, is to roll back all his rollbacks of our environmental protections that came in during the presidential. Now, there's some longer term things we need to do. One thing I think it's important to mention, we know that the fossil fuel industry has sort of controlled Washington, D.C. for a long time now. And it is time to break the shackles of that control. So one of the principal planks of my effort, in my clean energy effort, is that we got to take away those $27 billion of tax breaks for the fossil fuel industry. We got to take that money and put it into clean energy. That's a principle that I stand on for environmental protection. If people know me, they will tell you for the work I've been doing, this has been very close to my heart for a long time. We have had major advances in our state. I want to thank you for your leadership. I'll brag about it on the trail. Thank you for your doing.
It was great to hear Governor Inslee mention the 100% clean energy commitment that you led with many other states. An organization that's been a leader on that is the Sierra Club. And next question comes from the New Hampshire State Director, Kathy Corcoran.
Thank you. Thank you. You kind of answered my question, so I have to adapt mine a little bit. In dealing with climate and the climate crisis, how will you scale up kind of your experiences in Washington State? Because for all intents and purposes, a lot of states will not be starting at that level. And so how do we scale up? And how do we address equity when we do this?
Yes. I really appreciate that question. First, on the issue of how we scale up, I really believe that this is an existential threat to our nation's health, just like fascism was in the 40s. And I think we should respond to it the way that Franklin Delano Roosevelt did on December 8, 1941, which was we have to mobilize a full-scale mobilization of the federal government and organize the government around these principles. It cannot be just one agency. Every agency has to be part of this organization also. We're going to have major programs of policies and federal investment to do this, to get this job done. Very quickly, let me just run you through, because we're going to propose a very comprehensive package here in the weeks to come. But largely this is using Washington as a template. Look, we need 100% clean electrical grid in the United States. We need to electrify our transportation system so that we're not putting out CO2 for our transportation system. We need to have a a robust increase of our public transportation infrastructure. And you know what, we've put a $70 billion package in place, even through a Republican Senate. They can't build a birdhouse in Washington, D.C. 70% of that is clean public transportation with low and zero CO2 emissions. We know that we have to rebuild the stock of our buildings to make them energy efficient, so we're not heating and cooling the outside, right? And that is an enormous job creator. And by the way, that's important to think about because, you know, the fastest growing job in America is solar installer, number one. The second is wind turbine technician. But it's not just this sort of what you might think of as the technical jobs in clean energy. It's carpenters and laborers and machinists and plumbers who need to rebuild the whole building stock of the United States. That's a massive undertaking. We know that we need to put limits on some of the carbon emissions, and I've been very vigorous on that. I'm the first governor to put a cap on carbon emissions in my state from industrial polluters. We know that we need to demand cleaner transportation fuels, and a clean fuel standard makes sense. We know that we need direct investment in infrastructure by the federal government, as well as these regulatory systems to drive investment or private investment, driving it into these. And so I think all of those things are going to be necessary, and I believe we are fully capable of doing that. Now, your second part of your question, this is really important because we know we need a transition to a clean fuels economy, but we know we need more than just a transition. We need a just transition. Because here's what I believe. This is a mission statement that can address not just one problem, but two. We have an existential crisis in the climate, and we have an equity crisis in the lack of income and equality in the United States of America. And I believe that we have to have a just transition that will simultaneously address this massive income inequality, the fact that working people have not had a raise for 20 years, the fact that young people who are born into poverty tend to stay in poverty, and we can do both at the same time by designing systems that address both issues in a lot of different ways. First, look, the first victims of climate change are most frequently people in poverty, communities of color, the marginalized amongst us. We've got to target our help for them. We've got to target help that when we do these things, we help low-income people. That's why in my 100% bill, I put a provision in to help low-income people with their energy bills. That's in our bill. We also have to help people that might have some challenges during this transition. Think about people in the coal industry. People who have worked in the coal industry are solid, hardworking Americans. They deserve our dignity, and they deserve our recognition that they want a bright economic future. And I believe while we're doing this, we have to do everything possible to give them that future. Let me give you an example of what we've done in Washington. We have one coal-fired plant, and we're closing it. And when we decided to close it, we did it in a very intentional way to make sure that the community and the working families there had a bright future while we were transitioning away from this industry. So we did several things. Number one, we didn't do it overnight. It's taken years for the transition. Number two, we have created a $55 million fund that will help those families with training, with pension help, with health care, to cushion any of this transition. It also helps small businesses grow in the community, and also helps the civic governments with infrastructure needs. This is the just transition that we need. And I'm glad to be a member of a party who believes in simultaneously saving our grandchildren's health for future generations from climate change and ending income inequality. That's a Democratic message.
Another organizer of tonight's event is Rights and Democracy. Over to you, Heather.
Hey, before I forget, I was asked about PFAS here. I didn't talk about PFAS. I'm looking to you for some advice about this, about the specific solutions you would suggest, and I hope that you guys can share those with me.
Actually, I'm going to talk to you later about holding a community meeting in Merrimack specifically to discuss.
Good. I will look for it. And listen, this is throughout the Northern Tier. This is a big issue in Wisconsin,
It's
Michigan, and the first order of business is getting EPA to work. So,
Right.
good talk.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Heather. To you, Heather.
Thank you. So according to a recent report from the United Nations, we only have 12 years to completely change our energy systems before it's too late to prevent a global climate crisis, as you have stated here tonight. As president, would you ban all fossil fuel infrastructure in our country, including fracking, so that we can move toward that 100% clean energy as soon as possible?
Yes, we need to move off of all fossil fuels, and particularly fracked gas, and we need to do it in a time period where we can accommodate. The question I think that we need to think about is for infrastructure, any infrastructure we build. And I think we should be extremely reluctant to build major infrastructure for fossil fuel processes right now. Because look, if you're doing a fossil fuel infrastructure program and it's got a 60-year life, we can't go that long for fossil fuels. So we have to be extremely reluctant to do those things. And so that's why in my state, we have our 100% rule. The largest oil export facility on the West Coast, I denied a permit for that because it was the wrong thing for the community. I've been opposed to the oil pipeline in British Columbia for that reason. And I think that we've got to recognize that this is just a scientific reality. We just know that if we burn all of the oil and gas and coal we have, you're not going to be able to recognize the planet. And that's just a reality. So we have to move in that direction.
And by the way, Governor, you're looking at a lot of folks who successfully fought the NED pipeline.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you.
Let's move to one of the other Democratic committees. You've heard already from Rod Watkins, but from the new Ipswich Dems.
Okay.
My favorite.
So I'm going to change up on you a little bit here and talk about healthcare. As we all know, healthcare is among the most immediate and economically pressing issues we face. Various approaches have been proposed, from the elimination of private insurance with a true single payer like Medicare for all, to Medicare as an option to private insurance for citizens under 65, to making adjustments to the ACA. Can you please share with us your healthcare proposal, how you move the country closer to universal healthcare?
Well, this is a several-step process, but the first order of business is to not allow Donald Trump to take away 800,000 people's insurance. And we got to remember, we're still in this fight, right? He's trying to strip us of healthcare. Right. We've had one of the more successful rollouts in the United States of Obamacare. By the way, thank you, Barack Obama, for your leadership on this. I really appreciate it. So, and you know, we've had 20,000 people treated for opioid and chemical addiction problems. So he goes around talking about how he cares about opioid epidemic, and he's trying to take away health care and chemical treatment for these folks. So first order of business is to win this battle. Second, I would suggest that my state again has been a template. We hope to be the first state with a public option, true public option. And that bill's going through my legislature right now. This will be the first state to provide it. We also have had some success in integrating mental and physical health, because we know it's crazy to have two different healthcare systems for one person. So these things have borne fruit. On the federal level, we know we have to have universal health care. I believe we have to find a way to do that as fast as we can. We have to get rid of the filibuster, and I'm the first person to say that, because the only way we're going to get health care reform further is get rid of the filibuster. And then I believe the next step should be provide Medicare for everybody who wants it, regardless of age, and bring down the automatic enrollment substantially for automatic, and give everybody an option to enter Medicare into the system, as well as giving us the right to bargain with drug companies so that we don't get hit with these outrageous increases. I think that's the most successful next step. I'm looking forward to doing it. Thank you.
Another question from one of the other small town Democratic committees, Christine from the Temple Dems.
Hi, it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I'm from Temple.
What was your name?
Christine.
Christine. Yeah.
I'm from Temple, and we're a small little town next to New Ipswich, and we did fight the pipeline, and we won.
All right.
Our young children are now safe at this time. Now they can hear me. But our question is, around 138 million Americans voted in 2016 presidential election. However, this only makes up to 58% of our eligible voting population. Trump won only 27% of the votes. How do we, as a party, get the other 42% of voters to the polls in 2020?
Well, very important question. One of the ways we do that, by the way, before I forget, I think those votes should count. And what that means is I believe we should eliminate the electoral college.
Yes.
So we have been very dedicated and very successful in our state, increasing voter participation. First, by making defeating efforts of the Republicans to suppress the vote. And we have arguably the best voting system in the country because we allow automatic voter registration when you get your driver's license, pre-registration for 16 and 17-year-olds, same-day registration, and most importantly, mail-in ballots so that everybody can mail in a ballot. Because a lot of people work on election day, it's a trouble, it's a hassle. This increases significantly participation. And this year I was so committed to it, as I understand millennials, not a lot of millennials have stamps laying around. Have you noticed this? So this year I dug into our emergency till and I bought a stamp for every single voter in the state of Washington so that they could vote. And it has been very successful. We also have been doing some sort of creative things, particularly to encourage young people to vote. If young people vote, we'd be a majority party like by 15 percentage points. So one of the recent things that we did is I sponsored a Governor's Challenge Cup. I challenged all the callers to see who could register the most voters, and then I gave them a lunch at the residence. And this year, the winner was Washington State University, which was great because I went to the University of Washington. My wife went to Washington State Universities, and of course that's a huge rivalry. So the Huskies won the football game this year, and the Cougars won the voter registration, so it's a good thing. Everybody's happy. This is really important, and it is so vital. The reason I'm so committed to a mail-in ballot is that as long as we, allow local officials in smaller towns in Alabama to decide where the voter machines go, they're not going to be in the black neighborhoods. They're not going to be in the neighborhoods where now people have to wait for 3 hours to vote. This should be a civil right, and we need a new federal law to guarantee that federal right. And following Washington won't be a bad way to do it. So I hope we can do that.
We heard a little bit already about the NED pipeline, but over to Stephanie with a question and some specific requests.
Good evening. So first, I'd just like to thank you for answering these questions in a very detailed manner. I have been meeting with many candidates, and it is really hard to get a very distinct and specific answer, and you're answering the questions that I want to hear, so I appreciate that.
That's how I get in trouble.
Or elected.
Or elected, yeah.
In 2014, southern New Hampshire was threatened by the Kinder Morgan Northeast Energy Direct NED pipeline, as you just heard. It was withdrawn in 2016, but the push for frack gas expansion in New Hampshire has been relentless. Many of the people in this room have been personally engaged in the effort to stop fossil fuel expansion in New Hampshire, including Echo Action. In 2018, every New Hampshire state senator supported the proposed interstate Granite Bridge pipeline. Not a single senator, congressperson, or U.S. senator has called for moratorium on fossil fuel expansion and use in our state. It's not enough to confirm that climate change is real. We desperately need real climate leadership and a detailed plan that will inspire other countries to join us in action. So I know I had somebody else ask you this question, but I'm hoping that I'll get a more direct answer. So I want to know, in your first 100 days, will you declare an immediate moratorium on fossil fuel infrastructure? You said that we should be really seriously considering those things. I want to know about stopping it. Transition all those fossil fuel subsidies to renewable energy projects. And will you create a plan to reform FERC, removing all their fossil fuel industry funding and requiring climate change and health impacts to be considered when implementing energy projects? I know that's a big question, a lot of questions, but what you can answer would be very helpful.
I'll tackle them. First off, we talked about removing the giant subsidies to the oil and gas industries that exist. This is $27 billion. This is not a small amount of money. But also remember, the subsidy that the fossil fuel industry gets is not just the direct tax code issue. It's a subsidy of allowing them to use our atmosphere as a dumping ground for their pollution. That's a giant subsidy because this is a public asset. We only have one atmosphere. We all breathe it, and they get to use it in infinite amounts with no limit whatsoever right now at zero cost. And as a result, we get a lot of pollution. Now, I don't know about you, but when we go to the dump to dump a pickup load or whatever, like leavings from our prunings, we got to pay $50 or $60 to use that asset as a dump. They're using our atmosphere in limitless amounts with zero cost. So this is the most heavily subsidized industry in world history. And those subsidies have to stop. Both the direct tax subsidies and the indirect subsidy of allowing them to have infinite wastage in our atmosphere. And that's why I have put limitations on carbon dioxide pollution in our states and hope to do so on a federal level. On the FERC issue, I'm not sure I'm familiar with exactly what your question is, so I'd like to learn a little bit more after this meeting. But I can tell you that I will be adept and alert to any opportunity to right the ship when it comes to energy policy, and I've been quite direct in this regard. That's why they're suing me. The state of Montana and Wyoming is suing me because the Department of Ecology did not permit the largest coal export facility on the West Coast. And this was a decision by our Department of Ecology. And so I'm being sued over this, so I'm pretty alert to it. As far as the infrastructure, I'll try to be as plain as I can. I don't think we should be building fossil fuel infrastructure that is going to last longer than we can have fossil fuel usage. And I think that we just can't do. Now, when you say infrastructure, I can't say if they got to replace the gas pump down here at Hollis and Main Street that you're going to say you can't do that, because we're not going to shut off our gas pumps tomorrow morning at noon. So yeah, there's some repair infrastructure that we're going to need to keep things moving in the interim. But we just can't lock ourselves in to 60 or 70 years of infrastructure. That's just too damaging.
Great.
We've got a Department of Ecology. Can we get one of those in New Hampshire?
Yeah. Well, and hopefully you're going to get your net metering bill that was vetoed. I want to thank your representatives for that. I know Molly Kelly would have done a great job for you. I talked to her this afternoon about it, so good luck. I hope you win.
I believe we're through the House with a veto-proof majority and a unanimous vote in the Senate. So it's moving. We have one last prepared question, and then we're going to open it up for some more. Over to Laura Lynch. Where's Laura? Right in front of you.
Well, you've already answered my question several times. But I have a question. We did fight Kinder Morgan. We fought hard. But we also educated ourselves and caught them in so many lies, that I feel that, why aren't they being prosecuted for lying to people about what they're doing? And how do we stop that? And I'll just give you the end of my question real quick. My question was about reversing regulations. So we worked really hard to help our PUC with our health laws. We did so much, and now I feel like we're just fighting an endless battle because he's trying to change everything that we worked so hard as far as Kinder Morgan was concerned. And now with this Granite Street Bridge project that they're trying to pull on us, they're lying to these people because they're offering them millions of dollars of money, but in the proof of looking back at other states or cities that they've offered money to, these people haven't gotten the money.
Yeah.
So how do we stop this, and why aren't they being prosecuted for lying to these states?
So one of the ways we stop them is we take them to court, and my state has done that vigorously and repeatedly. I was the first person to sue on the Muslim ban. We've been very active on the child separation issue. And I'm pleased to stand before you to tell you that Washington versus Trump, we are 18-0. We have beaten 18 times in a row. We're a very good and active AG named Bob Ferguson. We work together closely on that. Listen, that's how we do it. Now, I'll give you the good news. This is a group that is so incompetent, they don't know how to repeal a rule. So when they try to repeal a rule, 99% of the time they stub their toe and they don't do it the right way, so we get it thrown out in court. So we just got to continue to fight these brush brush battles every time that we gotta sue them and win as many as we can.
How
And we
do
gotta
we
get a new
fight-
president.
How do we fight them with the Republican governor who thinks that they're the best things to, since I.
And how do we keep them from silencing people, which is their effort right now?
We elect these great legislators. Okay, that's one of the ways we do it. We get some more friends for them next election cycle. I mean, literally, that's how we do it, right? We get active and we don't get discouraged. And I think not being discouraged is important at this moment. I know we have anxiety and discouragement and frustration. But I have found the most important renewable fuel is perseverance. We got to persevere here. We got to band together and get to the firing line and elect people to do this work. By the way, I see this is not a union thing, but you made me think about something I've forgotten. In this transition, when I talked about a just transition to a cleaner energy, I think we have to use this as a way to revitalize the union movement in the United States. We have allowed the degradation of working people's rights to continue unabated for several decades. And we now have to give a right to people to really organize without fear of being fired or abused somehow. And that means having card check, it means having an NLRB that actually functions. It means doing what I've done, which is in my contracts, put project labor agreements so we can encourage organized labor, put prevailing wage rates with real rates, have really good overtime rules, and I'm probably going to have the best overtime rules in the country here shortly. We've got to do things that will allow working people to have meaningful rights again, and I'm dedicated to that. And I think this clean energy revolution we're going to start, it can be a perfect moment to do that. So thanks for reminding me.
I do apologize. The governor has a lot of people to meet and has an event up in Concord at 7. So I'm told we have time for one more question. And I'm so sorry. I'm going to put it right here in the front. Give us your question, and we'll wrap it up and leave a few minutes for him to shake some hands.
Yeah. Governor, a lot of people are waking up now to the continuing threat of nuclear annihilation, another existential threat. We did not get rid of all of our nuclear weapons after the Cold War. On the contrary, there are 14,000 nuclear weapons in the world today, almost all of them owned by the U.S. and Russia. So I want to ask you what you will do to prevent nuclear war, and specifically, do you oppose the $1.2 trillion total rebuild of our nuclear arsenal that's going on? Thank you.
Yeah, really important question. First off, I'm going to eliminate a person who is the most chaotic non-thinker in American political history.
That's good, but it
that's
didn't
number
start
one.
with him.
It didn't start with him, right? I'll tell you what, this is more a nascent thought than a specific plan at the moment. But our total focus has been reduction in the number of nuclear weapons. And I think that's important. And I would support continued reduction of nuclear weapons. I also support the Iran deal because I think it is the best possibility to restrain the nuclear power in Iran. And to tear that thing up and give them the right to move forward, I think is really a mistake. But I think we need to have another new strategy on nuclear warfare, which is to get these weapons off of a hair trigger. This is craziness to have over 10,000 nuclear weapons on a hair trigger that can be launched in 8 or 9 minutes. This is just a recipe for Holocaust. And so I really am interested in trying to advance at least the beginning of a discussion. How do we get to a situation where at least they can't be launched, where there's enough period of time to talk to one another so that you can also not have accidental launches? Look, we have had 2 situations in the last 20 years where either the US or the Soviet Union believed they were under nuclear attack for about 10 minutes. You think about the ramifications by accident. So I want to open up a new phase of really arms control so they're not on a hair trigger. I think that's really important. All right.
I'm so sorry, folks, that we are out of time.
You
will be back many times. You'll give us some closing words and come back.
Closing words. Thank you for what you're doing. Thanks for electing great legislators. I want to ask to get to know you better. I hope you'll take a look at our issues. I hope you give some thought. If you want this climate change issue on the debate stage, I need 65,000 people to send in $1 or more. And if you can help even if you're gonna support multiple candidates or you don't know who you're supporting, if you can help to make sure I'm on the stage in June, that would be very much appreciated. And again, early in bed, early rise, work like hell and organize. Let's go get your present. Thanks a lot.